This is a shortened compilation from an hour-long hearing with Judge Michael Udovic in the Hilo District Court in Hawaii, where this judge was entering objections for the prosecution, signaling to the prosecutor when to object, and preventing me from asking entirely legitimate questions of the cop witness. Most people are missing these biased and corrupt actions because the video that came from them, the official video, is like an hour long, and most people don't want to watch all that, and I understand that. But I also don't make commentary over that hour-long video to point out exactly when and where he's doing things he shouldn't be doing. So here's the first clip. I'm going to play this short clip repeatedly and slow down so you can see Judge Michael Udovic shaking his head no while looking at Deputy Prosecutor Brianne Larios, who isn't shown at the bottom left of the screen. I'm on the bottom right. It is irrelevant if the question I asked was on topic. I say it was, but you really have to study the legislative motor vehicle acts to grasp this. But back to the main issue here. Judge Michael Udovic is supposed to be fair and not to behave in a biased manner. By signaling to Deputy Prosecutor Brianne Larios that she should object because he shook his head no to my question, he is not behaving fair. In fact, Judge Michael Udovic cuts off Brianne Larios as she says, "I am going to object again, Your Honor." Then Udovic inserts his reason, "It's not relevant." And Brianne Larios completes her reason for objecting. We're not here to talk about licensing issues. So here's the clip slowed down. I'm going to let it loop for you. There he is shaking his head.
Object again, Your Honor.
It's not relevant.
So he's shaking his head. No, it's real subtle.
Again, Your Honor.
It's not relevant.
Shaking his head. She objects.
It's not relevant.
She's still speaking. So, again, Judge Udovic behaved in a biased manner here, and really, those of you who haven't studied any of this law by reading books or legislative acts, you should be asking yourself, why would the judge covertly signal for the prosecutor to object over this particular question? You see, I was reading from my notes, I couldn't see him, and he knew basically that this question would be a problem, and that's why he, with his experience, he went ahead and tried to intervene. Let's see the next short clip.
When you were behind me, did you observe me engaging in commerce?
Do you have a definition of commerce there?
That's, I'll sustain an objection. That's,
She has an objection.
That's for legal conclusion.
So again here we have the judge interfering with my cross-examination. He pretends an objection was made by saying he would sustain an objection. He actually jumps in and says, "It's I'll sustain an objection." That's and I say she has an objection, and he's, he finishes his statement. It asks for a legal conclusion. Like, he's prosecuting from the bench when he does this. So again, nobody can honestly think that this is honest and non-biased behavior by Judge Michael Udovic. And then here's the final clip, which cuts right to the heart of the matter in this hearing on my motion to suppress evidence.
Are you authorized to make a seizure of a moving automobile if you witness a traffic violation?
I think that calls for speculation.
Okay, so again, Judge Michael Udovic interferes with my cross-examination. This statement of his is an objection. Objections have different grounds. Speculation is one of them. So my question was a direct question regarding whether the officer has the authority by law to seize a moving automobile if he witnesses a traffic violation. Now, I know how this is going to sound to most of you, but how many of you have actually sat down, opened a code book, and read the law in the code book? And then how many of you have gone further and pulled up copies of the legislative acts? Those are the actual law. Code and code books is actually published in private copyrighted books. And there's been rulings on this in other states that that is not the law. But what is the law are the legislative acts. You can get copies of this certified from whoever your state archivists are for those legislative acts. In California, they're up in Sacramento. In Hawaii, it's the Supreme Court Law Library that has them. So, again, how many of you have actually read the law? It's not what you think is the law. How many of you have read it? Because what we're dealing with here is tangible facts, not what you think, not what you've been trained from years upon years upon years to think. And oh, if I go out on the road and I do this, that will happen. Those are consequences, but those consequences aren't necessarily following what has been written as law. And that's part of what's going on with the corruption in this country, where things are passed and they're not being followed. And things, in some cases, aren't even passed. And there are consequences that are being applied to people. And that is the bulk of what's going on with these traffic courts. So, again, this question, it may seem like a no-brainer, but you have to actually personally read the law before you make a decision on this, because on the one hand, you've got me telling you you should look at these things, you should ask these questions. Okay, who am I? How do you know you can trust me? Well, on the other hand, you've got this judge. How do you know you can trust him? Just because this guy is a judge doesn't mean that the man is telling you the truth. He's a human. I'm a human. Humans lie. Humans can make mistakes. So it's up to you as an adult to physically get your hands on copies of your legislative acts, or the ones in this case. I'll show you the ones that are posted on the Hawaii legislative website after I'm done blabbing here about what this judge has done. So let's get back to that. So basically, in this situation where I've asked this cop, are you authorized to make a seizure of a moving automobile if you witness a traffic violation? If he answered that he had no authority to do so, which is actually the case based on the warrantless arrest statute in the Hawaii Revised Statutes, section 803-5, Google it, then he would have admitted to making an unlawful seizure. And the evidence would have to be suppressed in my case, and that pretty much would kill the case. On the other hand, if he answered yes, that he had the authority, then the next question I can ask is, what statute authorizes him to make warrantless seizures for non-criminal traffic violations? And there's no statute for that. One doesn't exist. Cops have to have statutes in place allowing them to do certain things. Otherwise, they can't do it. They're employees. And the acts are their guidelines for what they can and can't do. And if they happen to act outside of what they've been told they can do, then they've acted outside of the scope of their authority. Some of you have heard about qualified immunity. They would lose their qualified immunity in that situation. I've got this situation, but the problem is the judiciary is just completely rotten to the core, and they're protecting this. Again, the statute in the Hawaii Revised Statutes, section 803-5, subsection B, is the one that explicitly prohibits arresting and seizing people for non-criminal behavior. It very explicitly describes what probable cause is, and probable cause only exists in relations to criminal behavior, not violations, not infractions. Those two things are the same thing. They're civil. you can only be held liable for fines with those things, and they're not arrestable offenses or offenses in which you could be seized. So now, all of that argument aside, we get back to the core issue with these videos here, which is that at this point, Judge Udovich stopped my cross-examination, that question, with another objection in favor of the prosecution on the alleged grounds of speculation. So that's at least 3 times that he has interjected himself on behalf of the prosecution by making or suggesting that the prosecution enter an objection. All right, everyone. So based on these examples of the corruption in my March 30th, 2017 motion to suppress hearing, do you all think that Judge Michael Udovich was behaving honest by signaling to the prosecutor when to object? Do you think that Judge Michael Udovich was biased for entering objections on behalf of the prosecutor and protecting the cop from having to answer the questions I posed to him? Do you think that I had a fair motion to suppress hearing in front of Judge Udovich? Please leave your comments below. I'd appreciate it. Also, please share these videos. I'm not getting much support in the way of links from other people, so you know, you gotta get behind the people that are stepping up to the corruption and support them. And if you do think that this judge's behavior was a problem, think of all the other defendants that this judge has seen who haven't had 10 years to study the law and who don't have a higher education like I do. So these people, you know, there's probably innocent people that have been convicted by him, and even guilty people that have been convicted that may have had worse sentences just because the guy's socking it to him and he's biased. So, you know, please consider calling the news at West Hawaii today. That's 808-329-9311. Ask them to cover this corruption. Link to my videos, especially these shorter ones that are really pointing out what's going on with these judges and the corruption. My cases are still going on. I have a trial coming up January 18th, and I could use more public attention on this because the judges, they seem to behave a little bit better when there's more attention on them, but otherwise there really isn't much in the way of reprimanding them and keeping them in line. They're not, especially with the issues that I'm raising. The issues that I'm raising are systemic. They're not related to just a single issue. They're systemic, and so they're circling the wagons on this. I've applied for writ of mandate all the way up to the Supreme Court and pointed out what these guys were doing and the fact that no actual charges were entered. Again, this gets back to reading the law and seeing, you know, what charges are, who can enter them, and none of that was done within the statutory limitations period. And the Supreme Court would not touch this. They just, you know, let it be. So give me a hand here and contact the news at West Hawaii today. I'd really appreciate it. Share the videos. Thank you.